The minute Shay starts yelling. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? God damn it. Okay, that's not the page. That's it. It's Sunday morning. Welcome to the Art of Rock, where every Sunday we're going to talk about music and rock and roll and getting through it and everything from production to depression and stuff like that. This is brought to you every Sunday. You got it. Right here, right now. My phone is zinging at me and it's like, who the fuck? Really? Hey! It's funny, it's Brian. Big hi to Brian from the Gossicles. It's all on Angelspit's Twitch this time, every week. Wherever you are, make a note of it. Like every week except, I don't know, whenever. Brought to you by Angelspit's Patreon. Many Patreon members are here with us now. Thank you, Angelspit Patreon members. As always, we keep each other going. You guys rock. If you're bored, support me on that. But you don't have to. It's okay. Because I try and make as much shit free as I possibly can. Here's John. Angelspit's just put out a new album called Diesel Priest. It's incredibly offensive, and I'm very, very proud of it. Angelspit's also put out another album called Sequence 1 Glass Jar, which is something totally different. It's electronic ambient music, and it's kind of pretty dark. And the t-shirts have just come in, which are on top of the Remixes over there, because the good thing about a keyboard is it's also a table. I used to use my Jupiter 8s as a table, and I got in so much trouble. But that's our Glass Jar. Jump on it because it's amazing. There are a whole bunch of amazing bands that you need to know about. They're on Spotify. Spotify is not the devil. It's actually really good. I could go into long rants on why Spotify is so good. And if you like non-stop music from the bleeding edge, bloody MTV TV, that's where it's at. And after we've done this, we're going to raid on over there. MTV TV. And if you've got a track, email it to them with a video. They'll play it. And remember that they've also got a Patreon because it ain't cheap, running a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, non-stop video channel. Ta-da! And with that incredibly bad introduction, I'm turning mics on. It's like letting the animals out of the cage. John, why are you on fire? Oh, the candle. It's a nice candle. And that's my cat you can hear in the background just yelling at me. Let's talk about kick drums. That's today's number one thing. Then we're going to talk about remixes. But I want to talk about kick drums. And I want to hear what you guys say about kick drums, what your thoughts are, where you go with them, how you use it. Is it always 4 on the floor? Alex has already got his hands up. What sound do you use? How do you go about sounds? Let's throw some ideas open here because there's a nice thing going on. Alex, fill me with your amazingness.
I have this thing called kick drum anxiety, and I'm always worried that my kick isn't good enough, that it somehow messes with the bass, or that it's not powerful enough. That's why I really like things that synthesize kicks by itself, so I don't feel like I make too many mistakes. Yeah, sometimes I think less is more, and I should worry less about it. And yeah, I feel sometimes synthesizers can generate great quick sounds, but it takes a lot of time, so I like more like specialized generators like drum machines with drum synthesizers. And yeah, I think also really good, there are some really great Euro modules like from Jomox, who also do like a standalone box, and it's one of the best kicks in the world for like 200 euros or dollars. And I think there are also others. I think there's a specialized Volker, and there are also many great EST plugins.
Thank you. It's really funny. As soon as we bring up kick drums, this starts feeling like a therapy session because everybody doubts their kick drum ability. John, welcome.
Hey, funny you mentioned doubt. One of the things I was going to bring up was Native Instruments has a instrument called Track 1, which is a combination of kick drum and bass line, and it preys on that anxiety. In fact, their marketing is explicitly about
I'm sorry,
that.
John, can you get going? Throw it to the next person. I have a cat that's yelling at me. I'll be back.
No problem. Yeah, no, it builds on the anxiety by like saying it's like, this is the hardest part of your song to make, and so this is the only tool that will possibly get there, you know, get you there the fastest possible. This is a kick drum. there. I just made a kick drum. Record it. You know, ASDR. Yeah, just you can manipulate it. Anything can be a kick drum. Like, you know, what matters more is what you're doing with it. Like, you know, it's like if you spend all your time crafting like the perfect thing, like trying to find like the perfect snap, you know, it's like, and if you make this beautiful crystalline structure that nobody hears, then it doesn't matter. But like, you know, I would spend, you know, it's like anything can be a kick drum, and a kick drum can be anything. You know, it's like if you pay attention to, say, like trap styles, for example, and you take an 808, like a Roland 808, and then you start pitching that, you can make a bass line out of a kick drum. You know, it's like if you have the building blocks, if you have like a sine tone, you can do amazing things with it. So I would look at a kick drum as a versatile instrument, and you know, with a lot of potential, and not try to fixate on like what is a perfect kick drum. There's like a kick drum is clay that you can model into different things. Which direction do you want it to go? Do you want it to be more harmonic? Do you want it to be more of a snap? You know, do you want it to kick through, you know, to cut through? Like, you know, and then what is the interplay? Like, you know, if you're using a compressor, you know, are you using that kick drum to drive other things, to draw away, to draw attention? Like, what's the goal?
Thanks,
and
John.
Carl is back with a floppy kitty.
Floppy kitty. Shay's got it's like a cone, but it's a soft cone because, you know, she's got an injury, so. But she looks like a little flower. But she's just loud as ever. Julius, tell me about your kick drum anxiety. Hello, Julius.
Hello. My kick drum anxiety part 1. No. Yeah, to talk from my experience, I very rarely use drum machines. I'm more into samples. Shame on me. And I have this very big sample packs on my computer, on my hard drive. And it took me a while to find the right samples to match my style and my kind of music and stuff. And yeah, so I have like 5 to 6 kick samples which I reuse every time. And as John mentioned, yes, Carl?
No, keep going. I'm next. Keep going.
As John mentioned, it's kind of a clay. You can just model it for your needs. And what I like to do with almost every kick I use on my songs is put distortion on it, plus overdrive sometimes, and I think it really does the job. And what's really important too, for me at least, is to tune the kick. It's crucial.
Okay. Thank you. Alex, I want to throw this to you in a second, but first, and anybody's welcome to answer this question, do you have a set group of kick drums that you constantly go back to? Like, are you always using the same fucking kick drums? Alex, floor is yours.
Sort of. I used to strive for making a new kick drum for every track, but I think that's a really stupid idea because I'm not getting stuff done anyway, and because I have so much anxiety about the kick, it just keeps me down. I have like maybe 10 kicks that I synthesized and sampled that I use with different compressor settings and different distortion and so on. One I did with my first synthesizer, and it's still one of my favorites because it's just so raw. And kick drums basically consist of like 2 to 3 components. One is like the transient, and the other is like the tonal part, and maybe there's also a rumble part depending on your philosophy, which is like a low pitched noise. Yeah, and this first kick drum was just a filter sweep with like the right settings, where like in this case the attack was partially a fast descending tone, but also because I wasn't like the best at sampling, I clipped it in the beginning, so it has like this a really sharp transient because I clipped the A to D, which is like really interesting, and it's so nostalgic, and it has like this raw feeling because I didn't know what to do, and it's still one of my favorites.
Thank you. Drake, and can I go after you, Julius, for a rant? Drake, I want to hear your rant.
Well, yeah, I definitely suffer from kick anxiety. It's one of those things that I'm never sure whether, you know, I've done enough or I've overdone it. My approach is I'm using analog gear. And to answer your question, Carl, it's always different when I start out. Typically, the kick is one of the first things I drop in, and then I go back to it later as the synth elements are added, and then I tune it so that it's you know, in tune with the rest of the song.
Drake, can I ask you, what are you using?
Yeah, I've got analog rhythm.
Cool.
Mark II I use from Electron. Yeah, and it's great. I find that the generator out of the box is a little bit weak. So if you're familiar with Electron gear, you know that you can layer the analog patch with a sample. I invested in a sort of a library of analog drums. I figured you know, sticking with the analog sound is probably the way to go. So I'm always layering what comes out of the analog 4 with an analog kick just to beef it up. Lots of distortion. Yeah, so I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm not really sure if I'm overdoing it or not. I'll typically sidechain elements in my mix with the kick drum that are kind of getting in the way. Initially, I was overdoing that. There was way too much pump in my mixes, so I've had to really scale that back. So it's very subtle, but yeah, I'm using sidechain compression. Yeah, keyed to the kick drum, kind of help with things there. And then often I'll put some, I've got a sub bass plug-in that I'll also incorporate into the mix just to add a little bit more on the low end. Yeah, and then reference tracking it. And still, you know, through all of that, I'm just like, is it where it needs to be? You know, always doubting. That's what I got.
All right, man. Thank you. And Julius, I'll go after you. But in the meantime, rant.
Sure. What gives me anxiety about a kick is to make it cut through a very, very busy mix. And as I said, I mostly use samples, ready-to-use samples. And sometimes the lower end of the kick totally matches the song, the mood and stuff, and the click just won't fit into the whole mix, and it's a nightmare. So I recently discovered parallel processing, where I actually take two different kicks or route one frequency band of the kick to one track and the other to the other track, and then just make a proper balance. So yeah, that really helped me actually.
Awesome. Thank you. Vince, I'm going to go before Alex, because Alex, you've just been a hog, man. Vince, what you got?
All right. As far as having a standard selection of kicks, no. But I do tend to use samples of kicks from mostly hip hop and dubstep libraries and layer them together, and then use an 808 under the kick to tune it if I want to do that, rather than adjusting the kick drum, throw an 808 at the pitch that I want it under the kick. And so like I don't have a set selection, but I have a set method of getting the kick sound where I want it. And I also have a tendency to use drum samples that are a piece of a drum track, so that I've got a kick drum out of that I layer everything else on top of. And also not on top of, so there's harder, and so there's variation to how hard the kick hits. And as far as sidechaining goes, I don't really sidechain anything, like, ever. I run everything through and I put the effects on it I want on the individual tracks, and when it doesn't work, I adjust. Like, I don't worry about tying things together that much, because the sounds tie each other together when you get them edited the way you want them. At least for me, that's how it tends to work out. But yeah, kick drums are definitely, it's an anxiety, but like, I think working with samples makes me a little less anxious about it. I have created my own kick samples, but I'd rather just layer several other ones and turn it into a new sound because it less anxiety that way. That's
Thanks. No, dude, I relate to you. Alex, go. And then Eric, you go. Then maybe I'll go after Eric.
I thought you would go first.
No, dude.
Anyway, I think there are
Floor's yours.
special effects that are called transient shapers that are specifically designed to change the transients in sounds, may it be drums or melodic sounds. But I think you can also affect the transient very well if you put a compressor on it and change the attack timing. Because the longer the attack, the more of the transient gets amplified and not suppressed by the compressor. So you can accentuate the attack, and if you have a short attack time, it gets more subdued. Maybe that's also an important thing to say.
Great. Or double it with a hi-hat. Eric?
Hi. I go with what Vincent's method too. I never sidechain anything. I don't like sidechaining. I think if you get the mix proper, there's no need to sidechain. Just my own personal thing. I've used it before, but it's just something I will use it if I really need to. But usually, I can get the kick going well with the bass and stuff. And I think it's also a spatial thing. And I always have my kick straight, right in the middle, and I usually put my bass to the left a little bit. Never right in the middle with it, and I think that actually helps less sidechain. And if you only go to the left a tiny bit, whatever it is, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, just to the left, it opens up that center for the kick to hit and your bass to hit a little off, so it's not really competing in the same exact space, but it sounds like that. That's my secret, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I do that. I use drum kits. I have a Alesis V49, and I was using the pad on the side of that, but the pads are starting to go, so I've been using keyboards a lot, just my keys to key in when I want, and then I'll go in and fix stuff if I need to. But what I usually do is I'll just bang out the whole drum beat. I'll put a kit together that I like the sounds to, and then I can hear it while I'm using. I'll just do the hi-hat with the snare and the kick all at one time so I can hear it as I'm playing it. And if it works that way, to me, it sounds really good. And then I'll record it like that, and then I'll make 2 other tracks, and then I'll drag the kick and the snare and the hi-hat, wherever I'm using it, into different tracks, and then start EQing and mess around with it that way. But yeah, that's what I do. I also don't make a lot of kicks from scratch. I don't double them. I usually take what I have and then try to mess around with it and get how I want it to sound to fit with the song.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I'm going to ask a follow-up question. It's going to be, do you always go 4 on the floor? Firstly, so I'm going to rant, and I'm going to keep it as short as possible. I do try and make kick drums. I've got the Hex Inverter BD9, which is so phenomenally amazing. My problem with it is it's too phenomenally amazing, and I spend a lot of time winding it back, because you can make the most enormous, ridiculous kick drum you've heard in your whole life on that thing, like nuts. And you can have it singing and bending and doing all this crazy shit. And it's all CV gate controlled. I have 2 kick drums that are my go-to kick drums for everything else, and one is the Angelspit kick drum, which I've been using since day 0, which is a kind of a conscious effort. It's just the best kick drum ever. It just goes, ah. And then the other one is it's like a techno EDM kick drum, and it's got a bit of balls to it. And what I'll often do is, because the Angelspit kick drum it's got active elements at 20 cycles, and I will either put a high pass on it. In fact, I usually put a high pass around 80 on it, and then I'll have the other kick drum under it. And I'll shape stuff so they're not interfering. Because my philosophy is the subs only have 2 oscillators. One is the sub bass and one is the kick drum. There's nothing else down there, because if that's the case, the sub is only focusing on two simple, non-complex wave files. And therefore there's all of this energy in mono, all of this energy that everything else above it can put into the definition of the sound. Because if you have something too loud and too complex in your subs, all of the energy of the speakers, whether they're headphones or speakers, goes into that, and hence everything else sounds brittle and shitty. Because the speakers literally don't have enough power to create that sound. I love Manchester beats, breakbeats, so I always program everything like a breakbeat. And what I'll also then do is usually have a 4 on the floor under that breakbeat. And it's usually the Angelspit kick playing the breakbeat, which is usually 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, so it's always got that funk going on. Another thing I really enjoy doing is having a 2-bar phrase where it goes boom cha, boom cha, boom cha, boom cha, boom cha. So it's only hitting the 1 every second bar. But then there's a guy under it going 4 on the floor. And a trick I did learn is to layer the shit out of your kick. Probably wrong, bad use of language there, excuse me. Just layer that thing. And for example, it's critical that everything below 500 is kind of like tight center. Mono, the subs must be mono center. But then as the partials are going up, as the harmonics are going up, you might get another sound that is a very, very severely high-passed kick drum. Just pan it hard left and make a copy of it that's dropped 1 note, 1 semitone, panned hard right. Or 50-50 or something like that. So when it hits, it does this thing. And then you can start doing really fun things. Or you might have a reverb and you record the reverb. So you might have a really short gated reverb on your kick and you record it. So now you have 4 sounds going on. One is the gated reverb, which is panned hard left, hard right. One is that very chunky kick drum, and one's the 4 on the floor sub. There might be times where they're all going boom, boom. They've all got that sort of like Manchester feel going on. There might be other times where that Angelspit chunky kick and the gate, they're playing a Manchester beat, and the kick under it is going 4 on the floor. That sub is just going 4 on the floor. You might do something else where the song starts, maybe at the middle 8, it goes into that Manchester rock beat feel. And what happens is that that sub kick is also with it on that boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? But as it goes along, that sub kick starts bringing in the 4, so it might be boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? So it starts bringing it in until it hits those last choruses. Then it goes 4 on the floor. Everything else also goes 4 on the floor, because a kick drum is the most like you might have that secondary kick, and I hope I'm making sense here, and that gated thing that's also playing that Manchester funk beat in the verses. Meanwhile, dude down here's going 4 on the floor, but when it hits the chorus, everyone is 4 on the floor. Then it comes back out, and it becomes this really wonderful way of shaping the dynamic of the track. So layer and get as funky as you can. When you start putting groove on the kick, look at what Deadmau5 does. Hey, that guy is so good at kick drums, man. He's the king. You look at his kick drums and they're not in time. The first one hits, then everything else is out. Goes, and that's over a 2-bar phrase. It's like it's played for real, but that first one slams 1 tick, boom, straight on. Then everything else, no matter, even if it's playing a 4 on the floor, it's got a groove to it. Then it comes back in. When you start grooving a kick drum, you will change, like pushing the 16ths to triplets a little bit, you will start drastically shaping that song. And, a trick I do is if there's an offbeat, like if the kick drum hits an 8th, drop it 3 dB. If it hits a 16th, like da-dung, da-da, da-da-dung, drop it a 6 dB. and even start playing with the groove quantizing of it. Push it closer to the triplet, and you're going to change shit so much. I don't know if that helped or that did anything. Alex.
Yeah, I used to really try to avoid 4 on the floor. Nowadays, I try to not to overcomplicate my drum patterns, and try to only take 1 or 2 elements that are a bit out of the usual or like more complicated, and the rest more simple because it gives the whole thing structure. Yeah, I think if you want to do 4 on the floor less boring, it's important to accentuate certain parts, like either like what I sometimes do is I tune some kicks lower or make them quieter, or maybe I distort certain ones more, and I think it really helps give the whole thing life and make it not feel as robotic and boring. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say. Sometimes I make more fancy things, and what I sometimes also do is like, or mostly do is like on the 4th beat, I just add kicks in certain places to the 4 on the 4 pattern, so it isn't just the same thing over and over.
Awesome, thank you. Eric, and can I jump in after you, Drake, if that's all right?
Yeah, and Carl just hit a point when you were saying where you EQ the kick, and you said you cut it at 80, Carl, right?
Yeah, everything below that sub kick dominates the sub. So maybe even 120-ish, 80-ish. There's just that sub kick. Everything else, you just pull it out. It's information that doesn't need to be there. Back to you, Eric.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with you. I usually cut on the kick drum. It depends on the sound the kick is. Sometimes I'll do it 60, but it's usually between 80 to 120 is where I cut that as well.
Is that your primary kick?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, because I've got a sub going on, but this is good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I usually use I usually use a primary kick, and I love 808s. So I usually have that in 808s and distort the 808s a bit to give it a little more fatness. And I don't always, those are my 2 mains that I use, and I don't always use them right on with each other. Sometimes it'll be like the kick and the 808 slightly after or right before. That's how I use them. But the 808, I will also cut a lot of that, because a lot of the 808s you have are really bass heavy. So I'll cut those also around 30, 40. A lot of and I think this might be a problem too, maybe we could talk about this, is a lot of times mixes have a lot of bass in them, especially if you're mixing on headphones and then you hear it in other stuff, and that's what makes it very boomy. But a lot of that on the lower end needs to be cut out, especially if the 808 or any other kicks would be competing with each other, having them right in that same space with the same frequency. Also, I do a lot of 4 on the floor for everything. Sometimes I'll do 3/4, but it's not very common. And a lot of my music, if people have heard it, I don't really create a lot of energetic driven music. Especially with this project I'm doing now, a lot of my stuff is a little, I would use 4/4, but like I'll space the drums out differently, so it's not like a boom, 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 boom. It's boom, 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 like just whatever I can come up with. But almost everything's 4/4 that I do, 99.999%.
Thank you, Drake.
Hey, yeah. Another thing I do that I forgot to mention is, in my track for the kick, I've typically got some, EQ and compression up front, and the compressor that I use in Logic, it has a clip feature. If I need a little bit of something extra to help it kind of punch through the mix, I usually do a hard clip on that compression, which just gives it a little bit extra to cut through. I find that really helpful. Velocities. I don't think anybody's mentioned velocities yet. Velocities are something that I have to try and train myself to do early in the process, because in my gear, it's all pattern-based stuff. So I'll typically create a pattern, and then I'm copying the pattern, and I'm building and modifying from there. And unfortunately, it'll be like the song will be finished, and it'll be like, oh shit, I got to go back and do all the velocities. And if I'd paid attention to that up front before I started copying, I would save myself a whole lot of work. So it's kind of like one of those things I need to remind myself of. Carl, you mentioned Deadmau5. I did his master class, and this is not related to kick, but it's something that kind of it changed things for me, and I just wanted to share around the snare. One thing that he says you should never do is have the snare right on the beat, and that was something that I had always done up to that point. Is like the snare should always nudge a little bit before the kick.
Okay.
And that it makes a huge difference energetically. It's yeah, just energetically. If you don't do that, try it out, because yeah.
That's great intel.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Deadmau5, the prodigy. Liam is terrifying at programming drums. The guy's a maniac. And you know, when you listen to a Prodigy track, it's off the chart. Listen, the guy is a genius at drum programming. Like, he's so good. Yeah, and that's the other thing with your velocities. Velocities, obviously, the first thing to go to is volume. Hit it harder, it gets louder. But also, put it on the frequency. So the softer, the more muted. The louder, the more open it is. And maybe even give it a tiny bit more pitch. Because remember, with a snare or a kick drum or anything with a skin on it, the harder you hit it, technically, the higher the pitch is. Ever so slightly. But because you're contorting the skin more, it goes higher. I had something else, but I don't want to talk about it right now because I don't trust any of you. I'm kidding. Graham, what do you got?
Hey, yeah, I was gonna say on that note, if you really examine Prodigy and like Bass Nectar and a few people like that, I think they have a really cool approach. In other words, like you can go back when you revisit your mix. If you're stuck in that editor's, hell, you can be like, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on all the low stuff. I'm gonna cut out all the pretty, all the stuff that flutters up here, and I'm just gonna go deep and I'm gonna look at that. Because exponentially their sound builds. It might start out with something pretty. It's the lighter fluttering notes or whatever higher stuff, but then they get into the nitty gritty. And I think a huge another approach should be like allow everything to breathe. Because I think everybody gets to the point where it's the Jenga tower, right? It's like, oh, I got this and I could add that. I could also bring in, you start dogpiling everything to where all of a sudden you just got one big, you could have a big jumbled mess. And that's where you get stuck in, why can't I differentiate this? Or why is this becoming mud? Like, why am I having such an issue? Like I had to learn to do that with a lot of the Grimm soundscapes. And it was just by happenstance that I wanted to put out a product for Halloween that forces you to stretch it out a little bit more, or re-examine what you have going on in it. So I guess if anything, it's like allow it to breathe and work with the different pacing of the song. It doesn't just have to be bang, 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 bang. It doesn't have to just keep firing on all pistons to the finish line. You know what I mean? It could have that downbeat. It could have that. You could start the song slow and then ramp it back up. I mean, I would really re-examine, like everybody's been saying, but Prodigy and Bass Nectar and mixers like that, because they just really approach it in a really cool, dynamic way.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Alex, I'm going to go in after you.
Yeah, this is also a thing in the vein of I was this many years old when I learned. I made the mistake that for many years that I accidentally time stretched my drums. And it sort of made them muddy and made the transient not as sharp. And it's much better to have them like, if you want to change the pitch them in a way like you pitch a tape recording, also where you change the playback speed and that changes the pitch. Don't make the automatic, don't do the automatic pitch shifter on the drums because it works great out for melodic stuff, but not so great for like drums with sharp transients.
Wow, thank you. Okay, today's blowing my mind. I have two things to throw in. One, someone remind me, Stevie Wonder. We'll come back to Stevie Wonder. It's always Stevie Wonder. The length. Get a kick drum. If you're using a sample, getting a kick drum that's long and it's got color to it. So sometimes you're playing it really short. Sometimes you're playing it really, really short. Sometimes you're playing it medium, and every 4 bars it just goes pop. And remember that in the middle 8 and stuff like that, if it's just long pulsating notes, it's great. The thing to remember about a kick drum is that from when it drops through that transient to the actual boom, that's time. So although the kick drum starts here on 0 ticks, it might not kick in until 2 or 3 milliseconds later. And if ever you walk towards a club, you will hear the rumble, of the kick drum that's behind the beat. It goes boom, rumble, because that's where the kick drum's coming into that destruction. Stevie Wonder, the grandmaster of them all. Listen to songs like Superstition, because he played drums on Superstition. Pretty sure he played drums on Superstition. I think he played them on Master Blaster. I can't remember. But when you listen to the stuff that he plays, firstly, it's got a crazy groove. But secondly, listen to how the drums change from the verse to the chorus to the middle 8 to the return. The drums are being played like an instrument, not an afterthought, not an obligation. And this is a real thing about, why I love listening to funk, is that the person playing the drums, we haven't even talked about James Brown yet, the person playing the drums knows what the fuck they're talking about, and they understand the supreme power that they have. Not only are they keeping the band together, but they're keeping the audience right there. It's really worth spending time, just before a session or once you're done with the session, write a breakbeat. Ding ding cha cha ding cha ding ding cha. A really good solid breakbeat. Write a slow one, write a fast one. Write a breakbeat. Learn what they did to the drums. Ringo fucking Starr. Ringo Starr. I could go on and on, but I don't want to. Eric wants to go on for me though. Go, Eric, go.
Just to bounce with you on that, Carl, there's a reason that bass and drums are called the spine and backbone of any band or electronic thing. If you don't have a good drum beat or bass going with it, the song's shit, in my opinion. Unless you're doing a ballad, obviously. Or
yeah.
Piano.
Or if you're in a band called Chicago.
Yeah. I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
Get out of my cab!
Yeah. Yeah, backbone, spine.
Yeah, and there's actually Dude Fest. LA has Dude Fest, as in the Big Lebowski Dude Fest. Because if you've ever been to Dragon Con, there's always some guy walking around in a robe drinking a White Russian. Dude Fest is just robes, White Russians, and narcissists. The guys with the scissors.
Nihilists.
Thank you. And I came to change the cable. But I digress. I'm just looking. Thank you so much, John, for pointing out that Stevie basically did everything on that track. Bam. So yeah, that's thoughts on drums. Does anybody else have a thought on drum, or do we want to talk about remixes? I see your hand, Alex.
Maybe one last thing that I also learned. Sometimes it sounds better if the rolls aren't strictly on the grid. Or if you're doing repeats, because then it sounds much more likely. I don't know why, but it sort of brings the whole thing together, for me at least.
Yeah, thoroughly agree. Remember that a lot of software, like Cubase, has the ability to pull in a drum sample and to take a copy of the quantizing of it. So you can then apply that quantizing to your own sounds. And that's great. It's a great way to learn. It's such a great way to learn. If anybody else wants to speak about drums, speak now or forever hold your peace. That's my new song.
You need a drum beat.
I do. Boom, cha, boom, boom, cha.
And somehow it's turning into Careless Whisper.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Everything turns into Careless Whispers, though, doesn't it? And someone should remix that. Let's talk about remixes. Julius, ask me your question about remix. Ask us your question, because you're dealing with a lot of people who have done a lot of remixes here. So go.
Okay, yeah, I haven't done many remixes so far in my musical career, and the ones I did turned out okay. So I'm wondering how do you actually attack your remixes? How do you start? I can quickly explain what I did. I got all the stems, and of course I knew the original song, and what I did, I used the vocals obviously from the original, but I kinda rewrote or rearranged the whole song. I listened to the melodies and tried to figure them out and played them on my own synthesizers. It was okay, but it was actually not what I was going for, and in my mind that's not exactly what a remix is for, in my mind. So
Are you talking
yeah,
about the Angelspit remix you did?
Yeah.
I really liked it. What the hell's your problem? I loved it. But no, keep going.
Sorry. Okay, I'd like to love. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Okay. Because I talked to you about it, and I really like it, and it gets released next mid March, so everyone's going to get to hear it. What I want to do is I want to ask these two chaps here, because John's also on the remix album, and Eric hasn't done one yet, but he will soon. It's like swapping spit. Oh, we're all remixing together. That was really gross, and I apologize. That was not okay.
Swapping Angelspit. Yeah, thanks.
John, I love you because you always go there. Eric, hit me with your rhythm stick. Hit me slowly. Hit me quick. Hit me.
Medium length. I would like to swap Devil Spit. Is that a thing?
Take it.
Carl, it's funny we're talking about this now. I was gonna email you this past week, and I haven't, but I have never remixed anything, and I was actually gonna see if I could remix one of your songs for the first time ever.
Sure.
Cool. So you were saying that, and like, yeah, I totally want to.
Well, you got to email me because I'll forget.
Okay, I will.
And I've got a blip vote on remixes, but keep going.
Cool. To answer what Julius was saying too, when you were cutting and mixing stuff, like I said, I've never personally done it, but I look forward to doing it now, and I would totally fuck the shit out of it. And because the remixes I hear from people that remix other people's songs, if I hear the same song, literally just like with a different beat, it doesn't do it for me. It's just kind of like, yeah, I've heard that song, just has a different beat to it. It's not a remix to me. A remix is literally taking somebody's song and reimagining the whole thing of how you would do it, not just taking the elements and changing, like I said, a drum beat or a bass line or something. So Julius, I haven't heard it. I look forward to it. But if you did chop it up and fucked it up, I can't wait to hear it. I think it's going to be dope. But yeah, so I don't have any experience, but that was what I wanted to say.
Thank you. John.
So there's a couple different approaches that I take when it comes to remixes. One of them I refer to as a strangulation refactor or remix. And that's when I have all the stems and I go through and I delete a track and I add my own version of that. I did it with Three Teeth. I've done it with, that was a fan mix, but I've done it with like several other tracks where it gives me an opportunity to see how the song was put together, and then when I disagree with like a bass line or something like that, I'm just taking it in my own direction. And what you end up is with like the same basic song structure, but if you end up like replacing basically every single sound with it, with the exception of the vocals, it will have a very different feel to it, but it still has like this, roughly like the same structure. Another approach is to just, basically use it as a source of samples, and you just don't just go through, like, maybe capture like a couple vocals and then just make your own damn song with, sprinkling the other stuff on there. It's like, because it's an opportunity for expression. Because what is the purpose of a remix? If you're looking at it from a commercial context, it's cross audiences. It's like you are, as the remix artist, you are giving you're opening somebody else's audience to yours. So what are you bringing to it differently? How can you make it interesting? To the point of like, is it samey? Yeah, it's like, it's boring. What I consider kind of a masterclass in approaches to remixes, listen to 9 Inch Nails over time. Because like, if you go through like the individual halos, because like, if you listen like the Head Like a Hole remixes, for example, they're fucking terrible. And there's like, oh, hey, here's a variation with a very slightly different beat. I don't think those were really remixes. I think those were more kind of like B-sides, or like, just like attempts, and like, this is like take 14, and we're like, yeah, let's just, sure, fine. We put it out there. Then you listen to Broken and Fixed. That's like when 9 Inch Nails like really, really clicked for me. Because Broken, what was it? The second track on it won a Grammy. But that whole EP is absolutely fantastic. And then Fixed is, just incredibly creative, and in different directions. They are some of the same songs, but they are completely unrecognizable, and they're completely different artists as well. That have done it. Some of it is 9 Inch Nails, but the vast majority of it has been shopped out, and you can tell. And like, those types of experiences, like when it is variations on a theme, you have like the individual moments in there, those callbacks, those references. Like, if you were familiar with the original, you're like, oh yeah, this is in reference to that, but it's taking you in a completely different direction. And it made me interested in like, it's like, oh, this is what like Meat Beat Manifesto like sounds like. This is let's see, who else, where did this, Broken, or not, following Broken was Downward Spiral and Further Downward Spiral. That was also another fantastic standalone album that at times just like took a passing glance at like the source material and like, yeah, okay, that's cool. It's like, that's a cool scream. I'm going to like just run with that and just do that. That's what introduced me to Meat Beat Manifesto, for example, or Coil. It's like those. JG Thirlwell also has done remixes. Like, there's a they did a Faith No More remix of Motherfucker that is just completely alien to anything that you would associate with Faith No More. And I love that approach of just take something and make it your own, use it as inspiration, have like a little drip here and there to ground it, to give people that reference, but it is your own work.
Wow, man, thank you so much. That was great. Hey, can someone do me a favor and jump on YouTube really quickly and give me the URLs? I think I did 2 Blipverts on remixing, the Book of Remixing Part 1 and Part 2. But if you Google, if you YouTube Angelspit, look, I'll find it. Okay, who have I got? Graham, what you got, baby?
Hey, so yeah, I would think if when it comes to remixes and stuff, it's like, I don't know, it's great to want to like honor, I guess, the original song. I think that's an initial hang up, is I want to do it justice. I want it to be as good, but like, I think you got to stop yourself while you're there. You just got to get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm just going to strip all of this shit out and I'm just going to listen to the vocals, or you got your chance to be Edward Scissorhands and just slice the shit out of it and just be like, you know what, I want to start with the hook, or I want to start with the second verse, plug it in, and then move to this, because it doesn't always have to be sequential unless it's a song that's like specifically telling a story. A lot of songs have wiggle room to be interpretive, to where you could flip, verse for verse, chorus for this, you know what I mean? Like, you could twist it around. Because I think, like, for instance, Angelspit Ambassador starts like like with a shotgun, like straight away, like it's instantly a line that's recognizable throughout the song. But if you listen to Atom Bomb's remix of it, it's got a lot of breathing room, and it kind of builds momentum, and it goes from a fade in the vocals to where it's pushing out towards you. There's just so much cool shit that you can do with it, but I think just don't get caught on that initial, like, this is the song, and it goes from, you know, A to Z, and I gotta make sure I hit these monikers of how the song used to be. Because I think there's just a tendency to do that. There's just a penchant for that. And I agree, like a lot of the remix albums of the past, they're complete shit. Sorry. You got your nostalgia headphones on. You're like, yeah, this is my fucking jam. But yeah, you slowly start to realize that a lot of them were just extended cuts of a slightly moderately different beat, but it wasn't anything really dynamic. It's cool to just hear different approaches structurally or sonically to that. But I feel like I'm babbling. Someone save me.
Thank you for the babble. It's always a welcome babble. This is a good babble. There's some really interesting points coming up here that I want to talk about. But first, I want Drake to talk about stuff.
Thanks, Carl. A wise person once said to me not too long ago that the strongest remix albums feature no repeat tracks. So there would be only one remix per track. Carl. I'm going to break that on my single. I'm going to have a number of remixes of the same song, but I followed that.
Which is why I gave you something completely different, but go on.
Yeah. So my approach, I'll starts with a group of stems. My dog's barking in the background. Quiet. Sorry about that. So I've got a bunch of stems. A lot of the remixes that I've done, I haven't been overly familiar with the song to begin with. And what I did was I purposely listened to the song one time. And I don't want to be too familiar with that song. So I've listened to the song, I've got the stems, I go through the stems, and the first thing I ditch is all the drum elements. I'm going to use all my own drums. I'm going to reprogram that whole side of things. The vocals I'm going to use, and what's left, I kind of go through and I listen to and pick out stuff that really grabs me. Sounds that I think are like sounds I want to use in the remix. I really, really dig. I take all of that and I import it into Logic and I start chopping stuff up. I want to create samples from the selection of tracks that I've got. And I basically, I bounce all of those down to WAV files and I load them into my sampler. My sampler, I'm limited to 8 samples. So from everything that I've pared down, now I've got to work it down to 8 distinct samples. And I can, within each one of those WAV files, I can, move around within that WAV file. So it's not strictly limited to 8, but I've got basically 8 sampler tracks that I can manipulate. And within that environment, I can move the start and stop position. So I'll be sweeping along as I've got like the drum stuff kind of sort of hashed out, and just, as I'm listening and as I'm moving the start and end positions of these samples around, I can find stuff that really jives and really clicks together. And that's generally my approach. I like to slice it up. I like to sample it and just rip it apart. And the vocals, they come into the sampler too. And sometimes I'm even just taking a bit of some word. It's not even a word anymore. It's just I'm taking parts of the vocals and turning them into instruments, that sort of thing. Just before I leave that, I watched a Ken Marshall video recently where he describes doing something similar, but I'm going to be trying it out probably on my next remix, where he, within his DAW, will load up everything that I've kind of described into a sampler, and then he's triggering it from a MIDI keyboard. So he can improvise more easily and try different things out. So all of these samples are mapped to the keyboard, and he's just jamming on it, essentially. And while he's jamming on it, he's recording everything. So it's recording all of the MIDI. So if he accidentally locks into something that's just like, holy shit, he's got that recorded. It doesn't get lost. And I thought that was pretty brilliant. I'm going to be trying that out next.
That's great. I love that idea. That's awesome. Thank you. Brandon! It's all yours.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. No, I just wanted to touch on a couple. John mentioned like the 9 Inch Nails remixes, the Further Down the Spiral, the Closer single is another one. The Perfect Drug single. And then I just recently started re-listening to Things Falling Apart, but those were all kind of touchstone remix things for me, like back in the day. Just listening to Coil, especially J.G. Thirlwell, and that whole group. Just the way they turned all those songs on their heads, turned them inside out. Track 1 on Fixed, that Gave Up remix.
Yeah, insane.
First time I heard that, I was just like, holy shit, what was that? What happened? I mean, I'd never heard music like that before in my life. So I was just gonna say, like, try to think of, you know, in your quest for direction, maybe go find the remixes that you really, really dig and try to figure out what makes those work for you. You know, like, what are the salient points of that? What did that person or, you know, people do to twist that and fractalize it and reimagine it and bring it back together in a way that made your ears go boing. And also, I think it was Alex was talking about time stretching the drums. I don't know what you track in. I track in Ableton, and I have been spending a lot of time just like actually learning how to use the DAW itself and trying not to bring anything else into it. And a lot of it has been experimenting with the time stretching algorithms on, like, with warping. So when you're, you know, maintaining the BPM and pitch shifting the samples up and down, there's so many different algorithms that you can use, and you play around with those, and it will actually go in and find transients too, and then you can use a percentage of that amount of, like, how aggressively you want it to apply its algorithm to those transients, and you wind up with things that absolutely were not there before. And I will spend hours with my head up my own ass just listening to those and, like, freaking out and, like, having a great time. So be careful. Set a timer, or you can spend a whole lot of time, you know, just kind of just adjusting sliders and having a great time. But it's another creative thing. I think in my remix, I think I made one of my hi-hats is a snippet of Carl's vocals that I just went in and, because you can draw your transients in Ableton and, you know, pitch shift up, down, apply those strange time stretching algorithms. And then all of a sudden I had this thing and I was like, ooh, I like that. That's a hi-hat. That's going to be my hi-hat. And, you know, we were off to the races there. But yeah, that was just my main points, kind of those touchstone remix albums. Oh, the Fear Factory, either the remanufacture or demanufacture, that one that's got like a bunch of Reese Fulber, I think early Junkie XL,
dude,
and some other stuff. That's another fun one on there too. But that's all I had.
Thank you, and thank you again for that remix. It was so good. Such a good remix. Thank you. John, who also did a very good remix, and then Vince, who did a good remix. John, go.
Thanks for the kind words. Someone linked a Rob Zombie remix album. Rob Zombie has also done had some great remix albums. Super Sexy Swingin' Sounds is a good remix album off of Astro Creep 2000. Another thing that we're talking about, like, remixing things that we like. One of the techniques that I use is remixing things that I don't like, and it's not a like I'm better than this. It's like, this isn't my favorite song off the album. Like, sometimes people ask me, it's like, what song do you want me, you know, what song do you want to remix? I'm like, just give me one. Like, don't make me choose. If I choose, I'm going to, like, you know, I'm going to cherry pick, and then I'm going to be too beholden to the thing. Just throw it at me, and I'm like, I'm going to do it, you know, whatever it is. And honestly, like, the less that I, you know, am beholden to it, like, the more creative I'm going to be, because it's like, how can I make this as alien as possible from it? for the remixing side, Ableton is actually pretty fantastic for, just, being able to like throw something and slice it up, slicing up, say like a 16 bar, segment, or even like a 4-bar segment into beats that you can then play either with a MIDI keyboard, or if you have a grid-based trigger system like the Push, or Novation has their Launchpad series. There's a bunch of different grid systems. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is that you can remix it live. That's honestly one of the techniques that I use sometimes, even for composition, is I'll take something and then just like play around with it. Just like, okay,
Gotta
here's
go.
the melody. That's intense.
Coming. I'm coming. Coming. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right.
That like this past week. Try it. Vincent, you're next.
All right, I am much with Drake on this one with the pull out everything but the drums, or pull out everything and start over with fresh drums rather. I maybe pick a couple of things. I keep the vocals. That's usually pretty standard because, without the words, most songs aren't the song at all. And I tend to keep a similar arrangement when I do a remix. Recently, I didn't always do that. I used to chop things up a lot more doing remixes, but I found that with something that already has like a decent flow to the verses and choruses and bridges and everything vocally, I don't like to change that a whole lot because I don't want to ruin it for myself. Like it's not a matter of thinking like I'm going to do the track a disservice. It's a matter of feeling like if I play it back and listen to it, am I gonna be able to enjoy it still? Because I get caught in the vocals, in the lyrics of music, which is part of why I don't write any, because I feel like I can't live up to that. But drums always start over with your own drums, as far as I'm concerned, because the drums, it's as Eric was saying, it's the backbone of the track, is your rhythm section. I tend to keep the bass, but change it a little so it's not the same bass. It's the same bass track, but it doesn't sound like the same bass track. It just sounds like a similar version of it, maybe. And then everything else is effects, and I might possibly keep a synth melody piece somewhere in a track, but mostly I replace everything but the bass and vocals most of the time. And sometimes I replace the bass too. It's just a matter of how complex is that bass line, because I don't want to spend the next 6 hours just programming a bass line. I think I'm done, but like I don't like seems like we might have things going on still.
Yeah, shit's going on. This is great, man. I really appreciate what you
Okay.
said. And I love that remix. So thank you again.
Is it like seriously? I was worried about the bass track on that so much because I can't hear shit out of my monitors right now. Like this external sound card I've got is doing nothing for the bass. You get like a tiny bit of the distorted growl of it occasionally pops through the speaker, but like the actual bass line doesn't come through at all. I had to mix all of that and then bounce it out and play it back on my phone, and I had to do that 3 different times before I got levels
Right.
where they are now even.
Once I liked it. I think it's great. Once I run it through the mastering, it's going to be tight. So you did good.
Okay.
I like it. I really like your sound. It's dirty and angry and I like it. I like what you do.
That melody in the slow part
Yeah.
of the track that little twinkly melody in there, that was actually an accident. I recorded that on the notes with your vocals, and then I used the video track of me playing it without the guitar plugged in, and I was going to just layer that sound over it so you got a little bit of the bleed through of the vocals behind it. But what ended up happening was I decided to pitch shift it. I wanted to bring it up a diminished octave, so I did that, and when I did that, I didn't have the tempo of that track locked, so it sped it up to do the pitch shifting.
Yeah.
So it created like that weird twinkly arpeggio in there that was
entirely
an accident. And I was like, oh, never mind, I'm leaving it.
It works. Thank you. Grim, hit me. And then I'm going to go after you.
I would also say, yeah, like words of encouragement. It's like us being our own worst critics are going to get like I said, get hung up on what the original song structure was and all that. I know everybody hit on some great points. Yeah, I would just strip it down to bare bones and just do everything you can just to listen to isolated pieces of it, just vocals alone, and see what rhythm comes out of it. And for some people, hell, it could be the first time that they even discover your project via a remix. Mindless Self-Indulgence has an awesome song called Never Wanted to Dance. And a lot of their remixes are very different, but the one that stood out the most and the one that was a bridgeway to finding a new group was the Birthday Massacre mix. And at first I just thought, wow, that's a really jacked up name for a remix. And then I start searching more and more. Holy shit, that's an entire band. And that's their sound and their dynamic, and just just the way that they hit it and the way that they approach the remix was just incredible, to say the least. It was like a complete re-envisioning. I thought it was a Birthday Massacre song, but then on that note too, and I think it's been said recently, and I think Carl even put a plug out there to encourage, don't be afraid to add your vocals if you are comfortable to it. Because Chibi brings a whole nother dynamic to the original vocals of Never Wanted to Dance, and that's what really punches it up. Like, the mix is incredible, it's very eclectic, and it gets progressively better and builds, and they start adding more guitars and more badassery. But then if you hear him sing and then it parries with her, holy shit. And you can provide that experience by being like, you know what, I'm gonna have some fun with this. I want to add my vocals, and it doesn't have to be high and punchy, it could be low, but it's a cool dynamic to where the listener is like, dude, I totally get it, and I like where this original song was, but then holy shit, there's a new person, who is he, she, who the hell is on this song right now? And then that could really just break up the monotony and pull people in. But like I said, all that to say, like, your remix could be the first time that they ever hear your thing. So make it sound like your thing, It doesn't have to be beholden to the original song. It doesn't have to sound so much like it.
Thank you. Can I go?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. I want to thank everyone so much for this, because there's so many different tastes and thoughts and approaches to this. I will firstly say that Charlie Clouse's remix of Closer to God changed my life, as did Nine Inch Nails' remix of Democracy by Killing Joke, because they showed me what a remix could do. The ones that started it was Robert Rasick doing Hot with Fleas by Severed Heads, and then he did Twister. And I mentioned this on that Blipvert. If you get a chance to listen to Twister, the Robert Rasick remix by Severed Heads, it's brilliant. It's so good. It takes one sample. No, it wasn't Twister. It was, I can't remember. Anyway, something Robert Rasick did for Twister. Fucking insane. Big Car. It was Big Car. Holy shit. He took a sample, took some random shit, and just reworked this track to make it this amazing thing. There have been trends with remixes that I've noticed, that when remixes really started, which was the late 80s, although arguably it was Paul Hardcastle who did 19, he started doing remixes, and that's why 19, the track, stayed in the charts for so long, because every couple of weeks he was doing a new version, a new remix on his Emulator 2, and releasing it. And they were printing X, and it would chart instantly. But they went through this trend where it was, I'm going to put a breakbeat under it, and it's a remix. Faith No More were famous for doing that. But then 9 Inch Nails and those bad kids came along in that golden period of rock and roll, like in the early 90s, and they started really pushing the boundaries of totally changing a track, like taking it into another dimension or sending it to hell and coming back to see what it sounds like. And that was such a grand time, and I think a lot of us were greatly inspired by that, changing the verses, changing the chorus, everything. Taking a tiny part in the chorus and making that in the song and making that the chorus, and then getting rid of all the vocal choruses altogether. People spent so much time. I'm going to say things on this that I'm going to be very careful about how I say. They spent so much time. The craft of making a mix. They gave a shit. My friend David, a foreman from the band Tanked, who's probably the greatest EBM band ever, he has a theory that you find the soul of the track. Like, what is the soul? What is the yearning of this track? And that's what you exploit. You exploit that mood. And he's never been wrong. Fucking brilliant remixer. Me personally, I don't even listen to the track to start with. I don't want to. There's reasons for this. I will take the vocals. If there is real guitar, I will use the real guitar. Sometimes real bass, often real drums, but everything else goes. You got to remember, and I touch on this in the Blifford, is that if you're on a remix CD, or album release, assume that someone else is going to do your remix as well. There's 2 or 3 people are going to do the same track because that's how it is, at least. So make yours as crazy, left of field, out of the ballpark as you possibly can. Go nuts with it. Make people go, oh, that is not the same song. Wow, that is so not, what the fuck is this? I actually remember one of the first remixes Angelspit did was for a band called Icon. And I really got in. It was a goth rock song. And I really, really did a number of that. And I remember the band, because I was friends with them. They were like my mentors. They said, look, we've got to be honest. We were listening to it. And the 3 of us afterwards were in silence. And at the end of it, all of us said in unison, what the fuck? And that was the greatest compliment ever. Because it's something different. I think their fans hated it, but they ended up really liking it. Whatever. I mentioned I only use that. Okay, so also remember that changing the chords under the song, that's why I don't want to hear the music. I want the right to be able to go in and change the chords the way I want to change them so I can bring in a new mood. So it becomes a new song. So when a person is buying an album and it has 5 remixes on it and it's $5, I want them to go, well, at least this one sounds like a different track. It's worth the $1 that they're paying for. That's just me. A question I really like to ask myself and others is, how much time are you spending on these remixes? I spend 20 to 40 hours. I did about 30 on yours, Drake. Remixes are fun, so have fun with them. Get in there. Thank you. The gun remix for Jen from Area. That was fun. And also at that period, I did a remix for Hillian Flowers as well. I can't remember what that one's called, but it was a lot of fun. Also, I Scintilla. These rain through the bells. Thank you. That was a good one as well, because all of these bands said, go in there and change the song. Do whatever you want to the song. You have complete permission. I remixed a very well-known artist. It was one of the first remix gigs I got, and he hated it. He kept throwing it back to me saying, oh, my fans are going to hate this. Oh, don't do that. It's got to be 4 on the floor. You change the music. Don't do this. Don't do this. The last remix, I called it the Alan Smithy remix. I said, don't put Angelspit's name on it. Because it's not Angelspit. It's awful. So I had my nose a little out of joint because I hadn't really had a lot to do with bands of this genre. Then I met, these guys, the Brat Packs. Area, Healy and Flowers, Ice and Tiller, the Gothsicles. And all of them said, do whatever you want. Go crazy with it. And on that, it's funny, Brian, this minute texted me. Brian is a master remixer. Look at what that guy does. He's so good. Spend more time on your remixes. They are fun. You have a right to fucking party. And you can do whatever you want to that remix. Anything you want. Because remember, somebody else is doing the same track and they're going to take the verse, chorus structure and they're just going to change a few things and there's the remix. And that's fine. You don't want too many of them on the album. So that's my absolute honest opinion on a remix is you're allowed to fuck it up. And if you want to keep the verse chorus structure, you do that. Totally fine. But you're allowed to fuck it up, especially with bloody Angelspit remixes. Rose, go.
What's up, y'all? So yeah, I just wanted to, I'm new to the remix world, but I wanted to encourage all of you as the person who just had a remix, that fuck it all up, do whatever you want. I mean, that's what I literally told everybody who was supposed to do the remix, but Carl's the one that actually delivered. Put the chorus at the beginning, put the outro right at the beginning, do whatever the hell you want, when I hear a remix, I don't want to hear the same song at all. Like, I don't, if it sounds too much like the same, then I'll just listen to that song, you know what I mean? So go crazy and go nuts and totally change up the feel, because what I think a remix, an ideal remix for me is a new creation, that's an amalgamation of the person who's remixing it and the people that originally created that work. It's a collaboration, and it's like we were talking about last time. There is magic in collaboration. There is something really special about hearing somebody else's interpretation of what you do. I had always wanted to hear big old nasty crazy, the kind of guitars that I do on Carl's stuff, and I got to hear it when he did the remix. It was just like, yes, I got to hear all my bleeps and bloops and crazy synthy madness, and I also got to hear these big choppy nasty guitars and screams, and it was just like, yes, thank you so much. What are you gonna say, Carl?
There's two things. I want you to finish, but I want to talk about Spotify and I want to talk about guitars. So if you're done, or you can keep going. Thank you. Two things. One, remind me about Spotify and featured artists, because this is important. The great thing about that track, thank you again, Rose, is the Cut Like This guitars were big fucking guitars, and they were playing a riff that went for many bars. So I just got, and what I built from that was derived on one of the 2-bar phrases. Got that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, and kind of changed the notes around to come up with my own riff. Then I went into the next bar, and I did the same thing. So this is a different guitar take. Then I layered the two together, and I think I had like 4 guitars. So their guitar panned 4 ways, times 4. Some of them will run through my distortion pedals here. Some of them were the way they were. But it came out as this god fucking huge, terrifying, massive thing. KMFDM actually laid down their own guitars on the Kill Kitty remix, which is an insanely good remix. Like, fuck, that guy's good. He's untouchably good. Come on, it's KMFDM. But another thing is that, remember, Spotify, who we all love to hate, gives you the opportunity of making whoever your remixer is, you put them in as a remixer when you're entering the track into DistroKid or AWOL or the cloud or whatever. The Orchard. So you actually get a place where you can insert the remixer, but you can also call that remixer a featured artist. And if you do that, that means I get an email, me as the remixer, I get an email from Spotify, same time you do as the original artist, saying, okay, there's a new track here, and we're telling you about it, Carl, because you're a featured artist. So what I get to do is I get to push that track to Spotify playlists, my audience, everything else. It'll come up on the coming soon thing and all that jazz. Good fun. Because this is the other thing about a remix, is that at the end of the day, I believe it is my duty to create something that Angelspit fans are going to go, wow, I love this remix. I want to buy this remix. I want to back this remix, and I want to find out more about the original bands. Same with the DJs that I have and all of that stuff, is that my job is to create something that is going to break you into a new market or expand on your already existing market. Next Vince. In a big way. And I think that it's really important that remixers think that and have a really professional outlook about what they're trying to do. And remember, you can do that by creating something very dark and shagged up. Just put the hours in, 20 or 30 hours. And Julius, I will spend 10 hours on a remix before I don't hate it and I don't hate myself. And this is hard. It's really hard because you're working with information that is or content that's not the same sort of thing that you do. It's not the same note choices. It's not the same this, not the same that. You're co-writing it with someone. So take advantage of it and have fun. And, you know, there is nothing wrong at all with experimenting with what you're doing. And that's why I am doing like these albums that I'm putting out now that are full of remixes, is that there's a whole bunch of people who I want my audience to learn about. And I want to put you on Spotify. I want to begin your the word I'm looking for is for you to start building your online real estate, for want of a better term, for your footprint. And it's cool. Some of my favorite remixes are by bands that have no fucking idea what they're doing, but it sounds so good. It sounds so good because they rock. No, John, you know what you're doing, and I liked it. So yeah, just you got to have confidence, and you got to go in there and just hit it. Does anybody else have a question they want to ask about remixes or something else, or where are we at?
Which is another way to look at remixes is a remix is like a recipe. You know, you learn the rules so you know how to break them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is another interesting thing as well, is that like, okay, so on the last album, or was it this one, a young guy named Connor, who actually shares my birthday, he did a remix, and it was like this totally ambient thing. Went for 5 minutes. And it was like, that works. That's really cool, because it's this awesome thing I can throw. It sounds nothing like the original. It's this ambient, weird, spooky thing, when the original is like, I'm Angelspit, bang, bang, clang, clang, fuck you. And it was this beautiful big thing. And it's like, hey man, that works. And this is the thing about remixes, is remember, if you can say it in 3 minutes, say it in 3 minutes, not 5. Because dance floor, having your track played on a dance floor is one of the most expensive pieces of real estate there is in this scene. So get to the fucking point and then get out. I don't mean for that to sound nasty, but if you have a short, punchy, driving remix, they're going to play that on radio. They're going to play that everywhere. And actually, that's another really interesting thing as well, is that a lot of radio places, back in the days when there were radio, they'd go, I've got to go to a break in the next 1.5 minute. What do I have that's 1.5 minutes long? Damn, nothing. If you do remixes that are like 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes long, believe me, they're going to have a place to live. Same with original tracks. I'm going to shut up now. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw in or any other pieces of therapy as I get my coffee? Tumbleweeds. Rose.
I'm back. Okay. Real quick, in case you haven't seen it yet, go see my new music video. It's on YouTube now. Everybody go see it. I know a bunch of you left some comments on there, and it was super fucking sweet, and I loved it. Thank you so much. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks.
Just some shameless self-promotion.
Thank you. Okay. So does anybody have another remix related question they want to ask, or production, or anything? Such silence.
I'm gonna bitch about the Roland, is it the TD3? Terrible piece of junk. Don't buy it.
Is that the new? Is that the 303?
Yeah, it's the. Yeah, it's. I absolutely don't like it. The you know, had to send it back. Knobs are super, super difficult to use. The MIDI integration is pretty awful. The CV integration is pretty awful. Don't.
So this is basically Roland's new version of the reboot of the TB303. Do I have that right?
This is Behringer's knockoff dipshit version of.
Oh,
that.
right. I thought you said it was Roland.
Oh no. This is Behringer's.
Of course, it's Behringer. Thank you. I'm sorry, man. That really that sucks.
I knew better too. That's the thing. Like, I should have known going into it. It was fun making like a little bit of acid, but like also it's just like, okay, I want to actually like use this as a real piece of gear as opposed to a toy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not a real piece of gear. Research
DynSync. DynSync is a guy in the United States, made in the USA. Yeah, you know about this, Brandon. He builds accurate clones of 303s and 808s and 909s. And they are analog accurate clones, and they're stunning. And they are what you would expect to play for something that is like that. It's a really interesting question. This one actually is like, if you've ever played with an 808, like a real 808, or a 909, you understand why they're so amazing. Because you sit down at this thing and you twiddle a few buttons and it just comes out. And a lot of these clones, they're close, but there's something about an instrument that is being designed well by somebody who understands the interface with a human and a machine. I think it's, yeah. That's just my thing. We could start talking about gear. I've decided that the greatest synth rig you can have is a Moog, Mini Moog, a Prophet 5, and an Emax. You can do absolutely anything. Well, it's actually a Moog Voyager, a Rev 2, and an Emax. Absolutely anything on it. And it's great. The
greatest synth rig is the one you have, obviously.
You stole it from me, Alex. I was about to say that.
Well, after so much fucking around for so many years, like to find that, I'd say a Jupiter 8, but I don't have them here right now, but there's just, it's really funny that the thing I love about a synth that can, which is the way you can easily control the filter with a controller. You can easily change the portamento, the slide that's going on in the synth, and you can easily add various forms of tonic shaping to it, like turning the sync on, turning the sync off with MIDI information. It's why the Voyager is so good. Oh my god, it's really funny that every time I go to a new synth or a different synth, it's like, god damn it, that Voyager is a fucking Moog. It's so good. It's so good. And You know, there's a bunch of synths. You just got to learn what they do. You know, find out what the now everybody's fucking gassing. Gear acquisition syndrome. Hey, look at you all. Look at you all. You're on Reverb right now, aren't you? Yeah, the thing about it is you can get a synth, like, you know, what's that little Ulterior thing? Or Ulterior? Mark,
Microfreak one.
yeah. If people
Oh,
are
well,
losing
yeah.
their shit over that. And that one. The stuff you can do, and also the little brute, the mini brute.
Mhm.
What you can do with controllers on those synthesizers, the way you can change the sound with, you know, the controllers, the MIDI controllers, it's fantastic. It's so good, and those things are super cheap, and you can do them on cheap fucking plugins too. I've got a Keylab too. I love that Keylab. Yeah, people are freaking out about the Microfreak. It's such a great synth. I should shut up now because I see Alex's hand. When Alex is speaking, we have to sing. Go.
I have an anecdote about the Voyager. So my first synth was the Döpfer Dark Energy, which is like a small synthesizer.
You still have it, right?
Yeah, I still have it.
Good.
And it's like really good at making experimental sounds because of its architecture and also because how it's tuned. And then I went to the shop and I tried out a Voyager. And I was so disappointed because I thought, like, if this synth is 400 euros, the 5,000 euro synth must be 1,000 times better. Or maybe 100 times better. But it wasn't, and I was so disappointed. I think now I would be wise enough to know the Voyager's strength and so on. But I think at the time it was like the biggest disappointment I've had in a while because, like...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll offer
But
you a
I think-
hug.
I think one of the best things about the Voyager is the detail because it's so everything is well adjusted, and also everything is MIDI controllable, as I think.
Yeah.
Which makes it like if you want to integrate it into your studio, makes it so much better because you can just save your preset and also you can control everything remotely and can make it really expressive.
So, if I may, I've mentioned this before that the Dark Energy, the MIDI CV conversion on the Dark Energy is really, really good. That controller 7, controller 1, there's another controller as well, I think. Note and pitch bend all come out through jacks at the back, and you can plug that into anything at all on it. It's such a good synth. Oh my god, it's so solid. There's so much you can do with it. But the Voyager is, and I'll actually go out on a limb and I'll say that the sub definition and thump on a on the Dark Energy is actually better than the Voyager. Although the Voyager is just insanely good. Voyager is not a Model D, and contrary to popular belief, Model Ds are really, it's hard coming up with a good sound on a Model D. Everybody thinks, oh, you just do this and there it is, boom. It's not. It's hard. Like, to get a real fucking pumping sound, it's really difficult. But yeah, like you said, you're looking for a synth that will allow you to even change the tunings on each oscillator. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful synth. I've got a thing for it. I wrote a song called Voyager, You're My Love, My Only Love. We're going on a magic Voyager to the planets and beyond. The look on everybody's faces right now. It's like...
Which album is that going to be on?
The next one. It's going to be great. And I'm going to be on the cover naked, doing this with my hand. Because you know how on Voyager there's that naked man, naked woman. You know, the gold plaque on the side of it.
The spacecraft.
The spaceship! Voyager.
All right, that's a Star Trek the Motion Picture reference.
Yes, yes, it is.
Before most of y'all were born.
Yes, it is. It's a great movie. That movie's got a lot of synclavia in it. Notice how we're not really talking about anything at all right now? Did anybody actually want to talk about something, or should we just call this?
Wrath of Khan also has a great soundtrack. That's James Horner, I think.
Yeah. You could be right, I don't know. I met the guy that wrote Wrath of Khan. Oh, that's a story. I'll tell you later. That's a great story. Alex, I want to hear your great story.
I played the Model D reissue in the store, and it brought a smile on my face. I think I wouldn't use it in any of my tracks because it's just not my sound, but it sounded really great. It was just a nice experience. But I think I want to advocate, sorry, for
Go. I'm being a dick. I'm sorry, go.
I think I would appreciate it if we talk about guitars and synth and mixing them both.
Yes, we wanted to talk about this last week. Thank you so much for rescuing that. Okay, dude, the Mini Moog, man, I'm telling you, they're so good. My mate Tommy's got one, like one of the originals. I know as someone like who's got one of the reissues, they sound identical. I'll stop talking about this shit right now because who fucking cares? So, synthesizers use up lots and lots of bandwidth. Guitars use up lots and lots of bandwidth too. Guitarists do this thing where they love muting notes, where they're not actually saying the riff. They have to go, ch-ch-ch-ch. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. I'm a guitarist. Ch-ch-ch-ch. I'm sorry, Eric, is this offending you right now? Ch-ch-ch-ch. With rock face.
Palm muting is amazing, Carl.
Yeah, it is, but it's got its place. Can I see everybody's rock faces, please? Yeah, Julius. Hold on. Finch is going to show us how you do this right. Watch and learn, Julius. No, come on.
It's not a good rock face.
Come on.
Just give me a minute. Just keep watching me. Like, I'll do some stuff, and like, you'll see it eventually. It'll happen on its own.
God damn it! I got
The
some.
Kenny G approach. Let's just noodle it.
There we go, Julius. Finally, very good. Good bit of the Gene Simmons. So here's something interesting about guitars. If you want to see the entire history of rock and roll guitars in 1 minute, you're never going to believe what I'm about to tell you. Vince, I love you. I'm going to mute your mic. Watch Back to the Future. Because you know guitar solo for Johnny Be Good? Yeah, hello. Okay, so in the 80s, there was a movie called Back to the Future. Nod your head if you know about Back to the Future, where Marty McFly, that's it, bang your head. Bang your head. So, what happens is that in that moment where he does that guitar solo, he starts with, I can't remember the names, but every fucking bar of that solo is a new guitarist from the next few years. And he goes through Hendrix, Pete Townsend, and he ends on fucking Van Halen. Nobody talks about this. It's like, watch it. You watch it, and you can watch the movements he's doing, the stuff he is playing. You can pick the fucking guitarist. It's like, that's brilliant. Anyway, and I think actually Van Halen played that. I think. I could be wrong. Because he also played the guitar solo on Beat It. Because no other man in the world is crazy enough to play that fucking guitar solo. Right, so from this we have ascertained that guitarists love to talk a lot. Blah, 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 blah. And Vince, we're waiting on your guitar face too. The other problem is synth players like to talk a lot too. So you have these two different species that are yelling Was Eddie Van Halen? Yes, Eddie was Van Halen. There's actually a place... Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Grim. There is actually a place called Halen in Dutchland, Dutchopia, and they're from Halen, I guess. I digress. What I think it's really important that you do with guitars and synths is you split the riff up. And the guitar takes the first part, the synth takes the second part. So it might be 6 notes. The guitar plays 2, the synth plays 2. Guitar plays 2, the synth plays 3, the guitar plays 1, then the next 2 from the next 2 bar. You know what I mean? So it's like, ba-dun in it, ba-dun in it, ba-dun in it. So they're to and forwardsing back. because you can either have a great big beautiful powerful guitar sound, or you can have a great big powerful beautiful synth sound. Ultimately, somebody is going to something's got to give. Eric.
Yeah, just to touch on what you just said, Carl, 100% is they both fill the spectrum, and if you're mixing the two together, they're gonna clash a lot. So you need to EQ what instrument you want to stand in, what part of the EQ you want it to be. A lot of the stuff I did before was guitar stuff. I would always put, if there's synth stuff over it, it would be very high on the spectrum, like 8,000 plus, and then have the guitar down here and then the bass here. You have to situate the stuff, and then depend on what part of the song, what mood you're going for, how you mix them together, because they do clash a lot, especially if the guitarist is palm muting, because it does add, that even goes into the bass part. The palm muting adds a lot of the low frequencies to it.
Yeah.
If you're going back and forth between palm muting and open, it will go back.
Hold on, Julius, I see your hand. So my thing is that when they're two big brash sounds, don't let them talk together, because you're going to get one crappy muddy sound, or two very compromised sounds. So that's just my thought on it, but I like your thought on it. And the other thing to remember is that there are synth things that can happen that are the synth version of palm muting, and you can play with that. So you might have it might be palm mute, synth, you know? Shit like that. Have fun with this sonicness. I'm just going to shut up now, Julius.
Okay, so as a guitar player and synthesizer player as well, I think we need to specify about what kind of guitars we are talking, because there are very heavy. What? There are very heavy guitars, like only playing the first 3 strings and power chords and stuff. You can also play solos on a guitar, and I think synthesizers and guitars, they don't necessarily have to be clashing in a song. You can very, very well use the stereo field of your mix, of course, and vary the techniques of the guitar. Yes, Carl?
I think that's a great idea. I'm just a bit dubious about using stereo fields to mask up issues with mixing or to overcome them. You've got to have a mono mindset. Although I agree with you and I see where you're going. It's just from my experience, shit gets complicated. Let me, however, say you do have a really good point when it's like low 3 strings, like down here playing a riff. If the synth is doubling it, as Eric was saying, having a really high part will work. If it's soloing, the synth is doing, maybe the synth takes the riff. I don't know. I want to hear from you guys, because I feel like I'm really kind of like projecting as you can tell, I've got some issues going on here, and I feel like I'm projecting them onto the group. So, my name's Carl, and I have kick drum anxiety complex. Eric, go.
I wasn't finished yet.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Julius, keep going.
Shame on you. No. Just one more tiny thing. Layering guitars with synths and vice versa actually worked very well for me. It's just a matter of the choice of sounds.
Tell me more, because I have trouble with this. I want to know how you did it.
For example, you take a clean guitar, let it play some chords or whatever, use an EQ and EQ it until, I don't know, I would normally cut it at like 250 hertz, and maybe set it a little bit higher at like 500 or even 800, and then put a pad under it, a nice warm pad. Works very well.
Okay. All right, groovy. Thank you for that. If anybody else has got tricks, throw them in. Eric.
Yeah, what Julius was saying is, I agree. It's a great sound, and you can do that. Pads, but when you do put them together, it will actually make the sound fuller. But one's going to be dominating the other one. It's not. It might. I mean, usually, and you can EQ them, but usually it's going to be one dominating the other, but it will fatten it and make it sound really good. Also, if you do use, you should have them in spectrums. The guitars should totally not be in the same space as the synths on stereo, but you also have to make sure when you switch to mono, which you always mix in as well, that you can still hear in both instruments, all the instruments. Because if you can't hear it in mono, when it goes into mono, you're not going to hear it. And then with soloing guitar, obviously, usually solos are higher on the neck, and the octaves go that way. And the key with that is to mix it back and forth. So if you're soloing, have the keys, the synths going the octave lower than where the guitar is, and then when you're doing the fat like this way, the key is to have the synths doing the opposite, going a octave higher or so. But yeah, you can fatten it up and put synths, and it's just like layering pads and making your own like atmospheric type sounds. You can use a guitar for the same thing.
All right, I'm really digging this. Thank you, Eric. Drake.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm a terrible guitar player, but I am certainly an unpracticed guitar player. I'm working some guitar stuff into what I've been up to lately. I use an Ibanez, and I really like the heavy sound. I like the chugga 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 palm mute, grating across the strings, all of that kind of overused shit. But I use it sparingly. And what I like to do, what I'm getting up to is record that into my DAW and then export it for use in my sampler. And then in my sampler, like, I can take one guitar riff, and depending on where I move things and how I slice it up, I can make it sound totally different. And in the mix, I'm adding more lo-fi distortion into the sampler, and I can hear how it's kind of mixing in with the rest of the instruments. And just by manipulating it, I can find a place where it fits, both sonically and in the stereo field. But yeah, I think just not overdoing the chugga 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 thing and using it strategically for impact can be quite effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like guitar solos. I'm not a big fan of guitar solos. Generally speaking, there are some amazing performances out there, and some great songs that some of my favorites feature guitar solos. But as a rule, I don't tend to gravitate or appreciate that as much.
Thank you. Julius, can I go after you, because I want to talk about editing guitars? Go.
Okay, so another specific example for taking advantage of a synth to enhance the sound of a guitar. I grew up with Rammstein and all this very heavy riffy stuff like and I love it. I'm so into this. And to achieve this song, I record the riff, and then I put a very growly unison bass under it, and it works so well. You need to try this if you want to achieve the sound, of course. Yeah, that's it.
That's great. Thank you. Alex, hit me.
Sorry, I can't use Zoom. I think Rammstein has some great examples. I think their synths are always very up high in the spectrum, usually. And I don't know how they mix it, obviously, but I think one of my favorite examples is on the song Spieluhr, where they have this like mechanic sound mixed within the guitars, and it makes them sound like almost like machinery. And I don't know, it gives me goosebumps because it's so great, but I don't know how to mix it. But it can sound really great.
Okay, thank you. Can I rant for 30 seconds about guitars? So the trick is, with the guitar is I'll record the guitars twice, and each time is going to be a stereo recording. If I'm going to record it, I'm going to use a 58. Two 58s, one pointing straight at the cone, one pointing at the wall, like that. That's take one. Then the second take is going to be a good mic like a Rogue NT1, and I'll need two of them. And once again, one is pointing at the cone, one's pointing at the wall. Or I might do something where I sit one on the cone and one is back here, like 6 feet back, to give it space. Both of these things are panned hard left, hard right. Or what I'll do, for example, with the 258s, one goes, actually what I'll do is 58 dead center, a 58 2 feet behind it. This one goes 50% there. This one goes 100%. So 50% left, 100% right. Then with the Rode mics, the really good condensers, this one here, which is in the core, goes 50% left, and the one that's over here, or 50% right, and the one that's back here goes 50% left. So what's going on is I've got a sound like this and like this. So both speakers have got a recording of a good condenser, hard left and kind of here, and this one's got it hard left, hard right and kind of here, and they're both 58s. I'm sorry, a 57. 57s just, they are the rock and roll sound. This is going somewhere, trust me. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the probably the condenser mic, the really well recorded one, and I'm going to cut them hard on the beat. Every single guitar for every single note. It cuts on, it cuts off. Because the thing about the guitar is where it stops. Not where it starts, but where it stops. So if it's going chunk, 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 I'm going to cut it so it finishes a 16th before the next track. So it is really robotic and really cut up. Then for this other one, I'm going to sit it on top of it. The one using the 57s, I'm just going to sit it on top of it and I'm going to clean it up a little tiny bit. So what's going to happen is that there's the Rammstein guitar track, which is glossy, processed and right there. And then I have the Sonic Youth guitar sound, which is sloppy, and it's right here. So when you put them both together, it's this really, really good guitar sound, which is a mix of the two guitar sounds I love, which is really hard cut industrial guitars with indie punk guitar sounds. I think it's really important that the first time a guitarist in the first riff, that time they play the riff, they play one note. Then on the second verse, when they're playing the riff, it's a power chord. Then on the third riff, it's what I call a claw, where they just do that. And they're moving the notes, but it could be some weird diminished something. So each time you hear the riff, it becomes more and more demented, more and more energetic, more and more slides, more and more madness. But even within that, the guitar must keep machine gun accuracy, like really tight. Does that help anybody's brain? I hope so. Yeah. Eric!
Just wanted to add, what you said, 100%, record guitar riffs over and over and over, never use the same one and duplicate it and try to like millisecond it to make it sound. The energy and the fatness that you get from recording a guitar, the same riff over and over again, even if it's like Carl was saying, you diminish and do different things, which is awesome. But even if you can't do that, you don't do that, just even the same riff over and over again just gives it such a big sound compared to just, like I said, copying and pasting and trying to get it to sound and fit in there. Definitely re-record every riff that you do and put them in different element, in different space in the song, and you get like a really nice fat sound to it.
It is with my highest recommendation that you research a band called Van Halen. Van Halen are terrifyingly amazing at guitars. I will go so far as to say they were the best. Kiss were pretty good. Van Halen are ridiculous. And if you want to learn about sidechaining the guitar, EQing the guitar, where the guitar is sitting and fitting, go with Van Halen. Obviously, then there's Rage Against the Machine, but Van fucking Halen, as far as the energy goes and everything else. The problem is that so many synth players have this attitude of it's a machine. They treat it like it's a synthesizer, and I'm going to fix it in the mix, and I'm just going to cut it up, and everything's fine. No. That's not what a guitar is. When you work with somebody who is a guitarist, they do these slides, palm mutes, all it, like, you know, seriously. For example, in the second verse, it goes back, and we've just been crazy fucking chorus. Now that we're coming into the second verse, instead of playing the riff, the verse riff, I'm gonna palm mute it. Then I'm gonna slap the shit out of that thing. It's stuff like that. You know, we were talking about drums before, that it's all of these little tiny things that guitarists do. It's why, you know, George Bykos from Meteorize, the guy's a maniac. And he knows the instrument. He knows, and he's the Angelspit guy. He knows how to record it. He knows guitars. I'm just going to write a riff and give it to him and go, there you go, do it. And he's going to do all this mad diminished shit. George knows what he's doing. I'm not going to get involved. I'll learn. But it's like, I've tried to do guitars for my stuff before, and it's been, it hasn't turned out very well because I approach it from a synthesis perspective, whereas it's a bunch of little brick notes on a screen, and I go plop, 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 add distortion, fix it in the mix. Whereas a guitarist is actually going to build the distortion into the sound, knowing that when they do this certain thing with their fingers, the distortion is going to act in a certain way. They're going to choose an amp. They're going to choose all of these different things that's going to bring energy. So yeah. Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad that this is helping. Yeah, so, you know, when Vince, for example, when you talk about distortion, I listen. Eric, when you guys, all that shit, that I kind of changed the way that I write music, as so many things about these art of rock things have, like, drastically changed shit. If anybody else wants to bring anything else up, we're kind of close to time. Is there anything I can answer, or want to bring something up, or Julius, what you got?
It's not a question, actually. It's just an idea, maybe for the next Art of Rock. Maybe we could talk about how Art of Rock affected making music for all of us. I think that would be a cool idea.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, totally changed mine, but that's just me. Eric, I like it. We're going to do it. Eric.
I just wanted to throw one more thing in, because Alex was asking originally too, and when you were just saying that, Carl, about just the guitars and the way they are, like, it is different. It's there's no MIDI for guitars. It's all audio. There's no MIDI files. It's all audio files. And I was gonna say, maybe Alex, if you want to try, if it helps too, looking at it as a guitar as like a vocal track. And if you mix vocal tracks, it's all audio. So you gotta go maybe about the same way as you would like with vocal tracks or any other thing that you actually have an audio for, because it isn't MIDI and you can't change stuff like that, and it's built in and it's there. So practice mixing vocals, and then guitars might come around the same way, because and literally both instruments, your vocal cords and the guitars, have that whole spectrum as well. So you are mixing them kind of similarly, if that makes sense. I don't know, but just a thing I never thought about till you said that, so maybe that helps.
That's brilliant. Thank you. My closing thought is that there are guitarists here. So if you need a fucking rock pig, there's Vince, there's Eric, and I know Julius likes to smash that thing as well. And Brendan, awesome. Get on in there. I'm going to leave this open after we stop the stream. Feel free to mix. We've also got the Discord. We have got so much to teach each other. I have learned so much from you guys, like marketing, music production, everything. Like my whole way that I have changed, do stuff has changed because of these Art of Rocks. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going away now. We're all going to go to a magic land called MTV TV. And MTV TV is a magic place that's got your new favorite band there that you just haven't heard of them yet, and they're the best. And they're going to bring love. We want to have love. Love, 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 love. Let's raid. Boom. Bye. 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 Bye.